want to know everything there is to know about you.
I am going to introduce me.
You must have spotted her by now. She's always there.
Don't I deserve love?
Somebody has to like me best.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Don't Know Her podcast. I am Scott.
And I'm Michael.
And we are back again to talk about another icon of cinema who we feel needs more celebration. But before we get to that, we just want to shout out all of our lovely listeners. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen and give us feedback. And we would keep encouraging anyone to do all of the liking and the subscribing and leaving all of those wonderful reviews. It really does help us. So thank you. And if you want to keep going with that, please do. But back to this week, and we have got a cracker. This week, who have we got, Michael?
Fiona Shaw.
How can a man look at a woman and not realize right away how he feels about her? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, I must admit to not being the most worldly of women, but I can assure you that I'm not oblivious of the ways of Eros.
Well, if I'm so attracted to her, why can't I tell her?
Perhaps those of us who have navigated the river of life singly are wary of rocking the punt.
Picture this. It's the 10th of July, 1958.
Love it. Setting the scene.
We're way too young, of course, to have been there. But if you ask your parents or your grandparents or anyone that was around, they will all have sensed a shift. And it was because that's the day Fiona Shaw was born.
Woohoo!
Woohoo. You know, nothing's been the same again, some might say. And she was born in Cork in 1958. Was interested in pursuing acting from an early age, had won a poetry competition and had won a drama competition. So it was clear she was talented from a young age. Her parents, particularly her father, seems to be less, let's say, confident that was a career choice that she should pursue. So when she wanted to go to London, because Ireland didn't have the infrastructure at that time for training at the level she wanted to achieve. And so she said to her parents, I want to go to London. I want to study acting. And her father said, yes, but under one condition, you have to get a degree, a proper degree, I think is probably how he would have worded it, I can imagine. So she studied philosophy at the University College Cork, flew that, got her bags packed, went straight to London, went to RADA, and really the rest is history. Like, she really took off in terms of her acting career. Like, within a year of being at or graduating from RADA, she was at the National Theatre. Then she was in the Royal Shakespeare Company as part of their ensemble in all sorts of plays, which included Shakespeare As You Like It, but also something I'm very excited to discover. She was in the original production of Les Liaisons Dangereuses. Is that how you say it? Dangerous Liaisons.
Really?
Which came off stage. Yeah, she played the Uma Thurman part in the film, like the young woman, alongside a cast that's Lindsay Duncan, Alan Rickman, Juliet Stevenson.
Whoa.
You know, it was a huge success for her. And this kind of culminated in being Electra and meeting Deborah Warner, who's a long-term partner in terms of their theatre career in 1988. So incredibly celebrated in theatre very, very quickly. So it's no surprise then that she would do some kind of leap to film. So It's My Left Foot in 1989, the small Irish film that comes out at a time where the Irish film industry really was non-existent in terms of like homegrown sort of stories, is released. She's part of it. It launches Daniel Day-Lewis. It like wins Oscars. And of course, kind of kickstarted Fiona Shaw in film for a little bit. So she was in like a handful of films in the early 90s, which one could read into it as being like an opportunity to make some money. So there's like Three Men and a Little Lady in 1990, the sequel to Three Men and a Baby, which we will definitely talk about. Undercover Blues in 1993 with Dennis Quaid and Kathleen Turner. Super Mario Brothers, where she's a villain in 1993 as well. So these are, big American movies. And she is making her presence known
Mm-hmm.
in good and bad ways, perhaps. But she doesn't stick with that. She returns to theatre, and she's doing all these amazing things on theatre. So who would blame her? She's playing Hedda Gabler. She's playing Richard II in this gender swapped production at the National Theatre.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, in '95, which really sparked a lot of controversy.
Yeah, people were really, upset about it.
Yeah, Irish woman playing a British male king. But anyway, that all these things that she was being able to do. So it's not surprising she kind of turned her back on film and TV. But then, later she did do like The Avengers in '98, another sort of attempt at a big budget success.
Yeah.
But then Harry Potter.
There we go.
So she finally hits upon like a franchise she can really sink her teeth into as Aunt Petunia, introducing her to a whole new audience who may never have seen her before.
Sure.
And then because of that, perhaps, she turns up in things like Catch and Release in 2006, The Black Dahlia in 2006 as well, Fracture with Anthony Hopkins and Ryan Gosling. She is kind of like recognizable enough. But then in recent years, I guess with, Killing Eve on TV, in this very exciting role of, this ambiguous, let's say, secret agent, she's reaching new audiences again. So maybe it's no surprise that she's turning up in these little parts in films like Lizzie and Colette in 2018, Enola Holmes, the Netflix film last year. And she's in Ammonite, Frances Lee's movie from last year, and also very recently, so fresh off the press that it's not been properly released, Kindred, this horror movie. So she is having like this increased presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we haven't talked about the Irish films, but she, of course, like Irish people will know her from The Butcher Boy, which we will talk about, I assume. So that's in '97, a Neil Jordan film. And she does, obviously My Left Foot and a film called Out of Innocence in 2016. But she's not as active in film as I just presumed when we suggested doing her.
Yeah, I agree.
But she is someone for me that's just always been present.
Right.
Like I remember as a kid watching Three Men and a Little Lady and my mother pointing out she was Irish. And at that sort of thing, like once there was a connection like that, it's like, okay, that's someone to like celebrate and someone to champion. And Fiona Shaw was always like somebody that I would have looked to, even kind of maybe not very consciously, of like, that's possible. Like it's possible to have a career in the arts. It's possible to be creative. It's possible to be yourself. And I should say she's been out as a lesbian for as long as she has known her own sexuality, which again is something which I'm sure I didn't know when I was very, very young. But it like I don't remember like finding out. It was just part of parcel of her, like her. I don't know how to describe, but that's always like wonderful. Like it's so reassuring in a way that it's just like a non-issue, even though I'm sure it's an obstacle in many ways for her career. Like just for her attitude towards it not being an issue, I don't know, really reassuring when I didn't know any gay people when I was a kid, or teenager.
Yeah.
But she really stood out.
Yeah. But there was your pal Fiona down the road, living her best lesbian life, and so you bloomed.
So what is your connection to Fiona Shaw? Do you owe her your sexual awakening?
That's exactly it. Thank you, Fiona, for everything. No, I mean, I have to go down the very obvious route. I am the child of a certain generation who was introduced to many an actor from the Harry Potter series. So I absolutely first remember her as Aunt Petunia.
Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
He will not be going, I tell you. We swore when we took him in we'd put a stop to all this rubbish.
You knew? You knew all along and you never told me.
Of course we knew. How could you not be? My perfect sister being who she was. Oh, my mother and father were so proud the day she got her letter. We have a witch in the family. Isn't it wonderful? I was the only one to see her for what she was. A freak.
Obviously, at the time, watching that as a kid, I was more drawn to other people in it. But coming back now, like Petunia and Vernon, the auntie and uncle, they're like, I howl with laughter. I just love watching them so much. I know they're only really in it at the beginning of each film and not even all of the films. But they're just great value. I love them. And she's so good at that part, and again, something that I've recognized more and more as I've watched those films like so many other people far too many times. But they always feel fresh to me, and she's great in that. So yes, like most people of my age, I'm sure Harry Potter was the way in. But then, so for you, was it she was present before, like you knew Fiona before the Harry Potter thing came about?
So my in to Fiona Shaw, like I was very young. Like I don't know how young I was, but it was Three Men and a Little Lady.
Oh, fun.
So, which I had not watched since I was a child, but rewatched for this. I was totally engaged. Like I was so like in this movie, which of course has like nostalgic value with me, but it's quite fun. So the concept of like three men. You know, the first film, they had this baby was dropped on their doorstep. This second one is like, so it starts off, the baby is now a little lady, and the mother of the child is living with the three men and the kid. So they're all living in this house. It's really lovely in New York. And the mother, she wants to get married, and she wants to get married to the lead of the film, Tom Selleck, who's one of the three men. But he's too shrouded in doubt and masculinity to be able to communicate this. And for some reason, she can't really communicate it either. Maybe because she's a woman in a 90s film, like an underwritten woman. I don't know. There's no real reason why this can't happen. So she goes and marries this director who's like British to the point of like, he's like a Disney villain. He's like, oh, you're going to come to the country and we're going to marry. And I'm like, he makes her have a mustache and twist it. So anyway, she's going to move to England and she's going to bring the little girl. So it causes all this drama. But the truth is, none of that really matters because Fiona Shaw enters as the headmistress of a school that the evil British guy wants to send the little lady to. And of course, Tom Selleck and the three men are not happy about that. Like, how could he do that? He's not a good father figure. He's not going to look after her. And Fiona is encouraged to believe that Tom Selleck is romantically interested in her.
A woman has to walk a very fine line with him.
Well, how so?
Well, she has to make it very clear that she's attracted to him, but she can't come on too strongly.
I'll say no more.
And this is where the magic of the whole film and of this performance happens. Like something turns in her head. She's like, say no more. And then it's left for a bit, which, you know, as an adult, you're like, uh-oh. As a kid, I think when I remember rewatching it and being like, I'm so excited about what's going to happen. So the next time we see her, she finds Tom Selleck alone in this like country estate. And he's looking out at a tent being put up.
So great. Oh, so great.
And he's an architect. So, you know, what do you say? What is the best chat-up line you could think of?
Not so splendid as your mighty erections, I imagine.
And she wanders in this like very like empowered, confident, thirsty way. She's horny.
Sneak attack. I love it.
Sneaking, exactly. Like she's kind of. It's not creeping though.
She snakes her way in. Ooh.
Oh, she does. Yeah. Oh, and she has her hands on her back, and she's like pushing her torso forward. And Tom Selleck is because I think he's giving a good performance. So he's not like he's being bland in general, but he's kind of like not giving much interest in her because he's so confused about what to do about the love of his life getting married. So she just keeps kind of throwing herself at him. But anyway, loads of things ensue. She becomes like a bit of an ally to Tom Selleck in the end, and their resolution is quite sweet. Had you seen it before?
No, I hadn't seen it before, and I haven't even seen the original one, so I still have not seen the first one, but I have now seen Three Men and a Little Lady. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It was so nice to see specifically her being sort of clumsier and fumbly and playful in a way that she doesn't seem to get to do anywhere else, perhaps except some of those American blockbusters. She has such a great energy, and I'm therefore really confused as to why that wasn't used a lot more. Like,
that's a really interesting point. So Fiona, in terms of her capability, having seen her on, like, I feel so lucky to have seen her on stage a few times, and having like read a lot around her for this, it feels like she can do so much. So like Three Men and a Little Lady comes out very soon after My Left Foot, and it feels like that is a very specific type of role she was doing in Three Men and a Little Lady. And I'm not sure how much of an interest that would have been to her when she was getting these, like Hedda Gabler, which is like one of the biggest roles you could play at that age as well. But
so you think a choice? You think maybe her sort of choice to be like, this is actually not what I'm interested in doing?
Well, I think it's a negative. I think you pigeonholed her, and there's not many great parts in that type. So this is very hard. There's not many great female parts anyway in film going, particularly probably not at that time. And she's being offered all these great parts on stage. So yeah, I can't imagine she would do it. But of course, like Super Mario Brothers must have been, you know, that part is just wonderful. Like how she brings this sort of...
Holy shit, what the fuck is going to happen here?
Like, how could she refuse the opportunity to be the sidekick to the supervillain, Dennis Hopper?
65 million years. We've been exiled here after the meteorite struck, while mammals roam free in the other dimension. Well, not for long.
When you get your rock.
When I get the princess.
Princess?
I need the rock and the Princess Daisy. And I'll finally be able to merge our world with theirs and get rid of the mammals.
It's everything you've hoped for, everything you've worked for.
Yes, well, Super Mario Brothers is really a very wild trip. Because you also have what in the video games are supposed to be Italian plumbers portrayed in this as two Brooklyn. Well, they're still plumbers, but they're from Brooklyn, so they completely Americanize it. It's Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo playing Mario and Luigi. Hoskins as Mario, Leguizamo as Luigi. It's a very severe. It's a very severe time on the eyes. Is Super Mario Brothers?
It is a lot. Do you know what I did? I spent a lot of time playing Super Mario. I never knew they were plumbers. Like I knew they were pipes. But, So when it started, and it's like, we better get the job done, and you see them in the van. I was like, what are we spending time like talking about plumbing and why? And it was only when I started thinking about the game that I was like, oh, they are plumbers.
You were like, oh shit, there are all these pipes, yeah. I mean, it's very abstract.
But when you say like hard in the eyes, Fiona Shaw is...
Also hard on the ears, you're right.
Ooh.
I'm going to have to go there and say she's really bad in this film. She's bad.
Yeah, but that, like, who is good in... Well, that... Okay.
Yeah, this film is not, but she is... But I don't even know if it's her fault. She has no idea what's going on, and you can tell. Her eyes are saying, help me. What am I doing?
Oh my god. Well, her eyes are saying, this better get me a nice little house.
I hope so, and I hope she did.
I know, and it is a fun part. It's just the whole thing is doesn't quite connect. But she is given a lot of fun things to do, and in more solid hands. it could have been a good film, and her performance could have been good, and what she was doing could have worked.
Yeah, definitely.
We should go back to the very start of why she was being cast these films or how people knew her. My Left Foot. So we did talk about it in the intro, and My Left Foot is, a big film in Ireland. And
Sure.
Of course, it went everywhere, but in Ireland, it's to the point of when we decided we'd do Fiona Shaw, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to rewatch this movie, because in my mind it's old fashioned. When I was studying film 15 years ago, I was like, Ireland could be doing so much more. And also, there's a part of me that thought, the Irish mamminess of it, because that's this big stereotype. And My Left Foot really pushed that.
Yeah.
And Brenda Fricker as the mother, in my mind, that's what I think of as Irish mammy. And Daniel Day-Lewis playing Christy Brown, who is a real life person who was born with cerebral palsy. That would be interesting to look at in a contemporary lens. Having said all of that, I think my viewing of it this time was probably the most I enjoyed watching that film. Had you seen it before this?
No, I hadn't. And I what you're saying from the perspective of having seen it and not wanting to go back there, I think I was always avoiding it because I was like, oh, it's going to be really bleak. It's just, it's just like Daniel Day-Lewis playing this, character who's gone through all of that. It's just going to be really weighty. And no, it's very kind of spirited and it's not. It doesn't do that at all. It's an incredibly accessible watch. I would say that it's not a tough sit. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm glad I've seen it. It took me a long time, but I'm glad I've seen it now.
They're a working class family. Very hand to mouth probably is a generous way to describe how they live. There's many children, and they're all looking after Christy. Christy is they want to support. He's born, and they make a decision to keep him in the house and to look after him. And Brenda Fricker's mother, his mother, does a lot to look after him. She's carrying up and down the stairs. She's constantly pregnant. That reflects Ireland of that time. Contraception wasn't legal. Even if it was, you'd have to go to a doctor. You'd have to get, it'd be expensive.
Yeah.
There's loads of reasons why this is happening. But none of that, that's all kind of a light touch. There is stuff about the daughter who is, going to get married because she's pregnant, and the father hitting her. And domestic. Again, the film doesn't shy away, but it deals with it in a way that's not so heavy. It's really it's gorgeous. I just thrilled to rewatch it. And Brenda Fricker and Daniel Day-Lewis, all of the performances, but those two in particular, I think are worthy of the celebration they get. And Daniel Day-Lewis, I will say at the start, I was like, oh God, this is very awkward to watch. But he's wonderful. He is so good.
He is really good. I thought it might be really uncomfortable, and knowing what Daniel Day-Lewis is like as a performer, very method and going fully into it, which is obviously what he done here, but there's almost this sense of parody. And I think I always had it in my head that My Left Foot was probably the prime example of that, but it's not. He has done an amazing job. It's undeniably great. But then so they are amazing in it and they deserve the accolades. But Fiona Shaw is the real surprise in this. She balances things really well. She's playing this really subtle and with a lot of restraint, but it's really, she kind of comes in with this sort of angelic light, and I mean light as in luminous sort of presence.
Christy, you're a great painter. Look, I'm a doctor, like your mother says, and I specialise in cerebral palsy. Now, we've just started a clinic here in Dublin, and I wonder, would you like to attend it? No, we don't have to pay, Christy. We don't have to pay. Well? He said hope deferred make a heart sick. I understood that. Ah, come on. Good.
And it's a really, really lovely performance, which I think playing specifically against Daniel Day-Lewis in it really helps keep the film kind of centered and on kind of that sort of track, because he obviously has to be playing. He's doing a lot with this part, of course he is. So what she's therefore doing in her part is actually really special and it's a very thoughtful performance, I would say.
And there's something that really struck me is she's kind of like, you know, this very liberal woman. She's like, oh, look, the system is like allowing this and I want to help you. And she's coming in, as she does often in lots of movies, like as the other. Like she is this educated woman coming into this working class family to help. And both the audience and Christy kind of fall in love with her. And yeah, you're right. She's really, like, she has a lot of different like facets to that character. And the type of quality of work and kind of what she was bringing to projects, it's not hard to imagine why Fiona Shaw was so successful so quickly.
Yeah. Oh no, completely. It's I think it's really impressive.
And then like just going, because this kind of otherness, particularly like in Irish film, is really utilized in the 1997 Butcher Boy. She plays Mrs. Nugent, and she is the antagonist in this film, but she's not an antagonist in the sense of she's doing anything. She's literally just existing.
The thing about Mrs. Nugent is she came back from England with all these airs and graces and walked around as if she owned the town. But here's one little pig that's going to teach her different.
Ah, there you are, Mrs. Nugent and Phil.
Just have me back, please.
Of course, but that'll be a shilling.
A shilling?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
And half a Philip, so there's 1 shilling for you and 6 pence for Philip. Altogether 1 and 6. 1 and 6, please.
Heaven's sake, you don't have to pay money to go by here.
Sorry, Mrs. Nugent, but a tax is a tax. You don't pay it, it's not going to be fair to everybody else, is it?
And I find it a terrifying film. I mean, going back to my childhood, this was a big film in Ireland. It was done by Neil Jordan, who internationally, I guess, is like The Crying Game. He was very famous for the Oscar-nominated film, but also has done things like Michael Collins and Breakfast on Pluto. But The Butcher Boy, it's a story about a young boy called Francie and his life in 1960s Ireland. And it's disturbing. So there's a voiceover which is all from his head, and it's kind of off kilter in terms of like, as an audience, we're seeing the world through this young man's mind, but he has obviously has some mental health issues. Like he has a lot going on, which is symptomatic of like the worst cases of rural Ireland, or living in kind of the environment that might have existed at that time, or did exist at that time. And Fiona Shaw is like, the way he describes her is like she comes in with her like Englishness. Is pretty much like she is proper. She has these things. She likes her house. She dresses a certain way.
Yeah, very certain way.
But he just takes against her. He takes against her in such an aggressive way. And he might be a little boy, but he's frightening. Like, he's absolutely terrifying.
This is... I don't think it's what I was expecting at all going into it. I don't know what I was expecting. I think the only other Neil Jordan film I've maybe seen is The Crying Game. So this is tonally very different from The Crying Game. So I found it quite exciting, especially when it started. I was like, this is quite thrilling to see this film taking these kind of bold maneuvers with this story. But yeah, I was really quite taken with it. But it is, you're right, it is sort of uncomfortable. And I kind of was waiting for it to get to that point. I think you'd sort of prefaced by, before I watched it, by suggesting it was maybe quite tough. And then I was like, I don't know, is it? It's sort of being very playful, and then it's that makes it quite tough, is these sort of contrasting tones, or sort of a tone that contrasts with the subject matter. But I still really enjoyed it. I think it is a really interesting film. But Fiona Shaw does get quite an entertaining role, though. Would you agree? Like it gives her
Oh
a very kind
yeah.
of fun, like you're saying about the costume. Even the costume is wildly fun. Yeah, as soon as she's on the screen, it's entertaining. She's getting to have a good time with the part.
Another film which I only recently even knew about, and it's looking at Ireland at a time where it's fighting for independence, but it's focused in on an Anglo-Irish family who consider themselves Irish, but have, for all intents and purposes, have like an English aesthetic. They have British accents or English accents. They live in a way like they are the owners of an estate. They are not Irish in terms of like if you're looking at that Civil War, like they were fighting about like a united Ireland or what was being offered. So they weren't even being considered Irish. They were like not Irish at all. So
Right.
I mean, the film is very much looking at this group of people, which even in late 90s, Irish people, like, why would we want to watch a story about what would be considered English people in Ireland?
Yeah.
When we were still just seeing our stories being told for the first time.
Sure.
Which is a real shame. I think The Last September, like, it's not a perfect film, but it's fascinating. And I can't think of anything similar to it in terms of Irish film. And it's written, I should say, by John Banville, the celebrated Irish novelist. It is also directed by Deborah Warner, who Fiona Shaw collaborates a lot with on stage. And I would say Fiona Shaw has a really good part in it. So she comes in, she's this, again, like a lot of her films, we hear about her before we see her. So we see the young girl played by Keely Hawes, and she's like looking at her fur coat, and Fiona Shaw comes down.
It suits you. Such a fuss. The train made off with one of my suitcases, and now there's a council meeting to decide what to do about it.
She's basically there to stir things up. So she's encouraging all sorts of things to happen in this household, and go from like the simple things of like flirting with a married man to less simple things of like getting a British soldier killed. So there are facets to what she's doing, but she's really enjoyable in it. And it's a shame it's in a movie that I don't think will ever really be seen.
But maybe it will, because of the traction that Fiona is getting very much at this point in her career, thanks to sort of work in very prolific TV shows. You never know. Maybe someone will get a little fossil brush out and dig around, try and find it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, like, again, like we're us talking like, oh, we're going to do Fiona Shaw. It's like, well, clearly she's going to, like, her roles are going to get better and better and better. And there were a handful of films I hadn't seen, but like, say, Colette and Lizzie and Enola Holmes, she's good at, like, she's in it and she's giving a good performance, but it's not like, whoa, this is like, wow, look at the opportunity she's getting.
Yeah, exactly. You ain't wrong.
And it's, very confusing. But like her most recent film that is hopefully going to be released very soon is this horror thriller, Kindred.
Your brother is leaving me.
He's not my brother, and I'm not leaving you, Mum.
We're moving to Australia.
Oh, God, I don't feel very well.
Where
I'm
you
going
go-
to lie down. It's my hip.
Fucking hip.
Will you bring my food up?
Mum.
Yes, and I'll bring your hot water bottle. Don't worry.
No, we will discuss it, just the two of us.
It's a horror film, but it's very, what would you call it, like sort of naturalism in horror. It's not it's not leaning into any supernatural elements. It's not leaning into anything kind of particularly out of, I don't know how to word it, but because the setup is pretty horrifying, and it has kind of these horror beats, and is set up as a horror film, but thematically it is not necessarily pitched in the same way that conventional horrors are.
Fiona Shaw is really good. Like, she's bringing this real energy to it, and it's kind of campy, like Mrs. Danvers saying like Miss in Rebecca or something. But it's
Yeah.
also like she's desperate. Like she wants this kid, and she has these really good moments. She has loads of good moments.
She also just gets to, which Fiona Shaw can do very well, is the kind of the snarling, screaming moments. These moments of bomb, like very guttural outbursts, and then back to sort of being a bit sort of steely. So it's worth it for that alone.
And another film which now is released in cinemas after missing its initial release is Ammonite. So Francis Lee's follow-up to God's Own Country, starring Kate Winslet. It's based on a real person, but they've taken creative license in this person's story, and it's set in the 1840s.
But we should say that, I mean, it's we should name that Kate Winslet's playing Mary Anning, who was a kind of very overlooked archaeologist. Is that what you call her? Yeah, fossil hunter, archaeologist, who has got now a lot of her discoveries on display in, say, like the British Museum. And then it's this lesbian romance. I think it's maybe weaker work from Saoirse Ronan, but she has done such great stuff otherwise that's not necessarily that much of a slight. But for me, it was a huge return for Kate Winslet, who's obviously having a moment again with Mare of Easttown on TV as well. But one of the sort of, again, great presences in this film is Fiona Shaw as sort of a past flame of Mary Anning's.
Mary. Hello? I just need to purchase the jar of salve, please. Salve? It's not your mother again. Poor Molly, is she worse? Do you want to come in? Just salve.
Mary Anning, played by Kate Winslet, is this closed-off person, and then Fiona Shaw's character is incredibly open-hearted and naturally kind and caring. And the energy in this scene between them, where I think it's the first bit in the film where they see each other, isn't it? Where she goes to get this medicine from her. It's such an interesting energy, but she's just there with this beautiful kind of long blonde hair, and she's wearing this big dress thing, and she looks wonderful. She just looks very ethereal and gorgeous, and she brings a lot of warmth to a film that is intentionally chilly otherwise.
It's really Fiona Shaw of why I liked the film as much as I did. She brings out a lot of Kate Winslet's character, so we don't know much before. And we do see Fiona Shaw very briefly in the corner, and you see her with another woman. And you basically see, which you don't see very often in queer stories, you don't see queer stories set in the past, particularly like in the 19th century, of a queer person living happily being queer. There's this like out and proud woman at this time where we don't see queer people.
Yeah. So
So that alone would have been enough. But what she brings, like, so Kate Winslet arrives and she's like, I need medicine and I need these things. I know, I'm so sorry, Kate, when you listen, but and Fiona's being so wonderful. Like, it's so like clear.
Yeah.
There was another option for
Yes.
Kate. And then
Yeah.
towards the end, we like Fiona Shaw has this wonderful scene.
I just wasn't sure I could live up to you. Or your expectations of me. A small sidestep could curtail it completely. I wasn't the enemy, but it often felt like I was. I tried. No. I don't think you did. Not really. You seemed to do everything you could to be distant.
And you know exactly what she means, and you know what this dynamic would have been. And then she says other things of like,
eventually I just stopped trying.
and it breaks your heart because
So much. Yeah.
not only from the perspective like Kate Winslet could have been happy, but also like Fiona's character really did try. Like, she had so much to give, and she was trying to get it with this person who they probably did love each other, but for whatever reason, like, Kate Winslet wasn't able to receive what Fiona was giving,
Yeah.
but they're both there to support each other, which feels like we don't get enough representation of queer stories, so that's wonderful to see that sort of dynamic, particularly of people that are not young, like older characters. Again, Kate Winslet, please don't like hit me and kill me in my sleep for these comments. You're beautiful and young. But I just think it's wonderful. And yeah, so the film, like, to me, the film is like so cold. It's I don't get anything from it. But when it opens up with Fiona in those few parts, and the ending at the last kind of half an hour, 40 minutes, I really love it. And it makes me really excited about what Francis Lee will do.
Oh my goodness,
next.
I'm so excited for what he does next. It's wonderful.
And speaking of which, I can't wait to see what Fiona does next. But before that,
oh my god, I'm going to test you upon Miss Shaw and see what you know.
Bring it on.
Let's start with a straightforward one. Let's start with which substantial poem can Fiona recite in its entirety? And she did it many, many times in many, many forms.
So this shows my ignorance of literature. I know that it's Wasteland.
It is, yes.
Is it by Eliot?
T.S. Eliot, that's correct. Very good. Let's now do get in with the point which a lot of people like me come to Miss Shaw for, and this is a game called the Harry Potter Connection. So I'm going to give you the name of a character from Harry Potter, and you're going to tell me which film the actor who plays that character in Harry Potter stars in another film with Fiona Shaw. All right?
Oh my god, okay.
So let's start with an easy one. Let's go with Lord Voldemort.
That would be Ralph Fiennes in the forgotten masterpiece, which is the non-Marvel Avengers film.
That's it, you've got it. The Avengers. Ralph Fiennes in the Avengers. All right. So sticking on the evil track, Bellatrix Lestrange.
Well, I know who that is. She's got crazy hair. She needs a little brush. That's Helena Bonham Carter. No, I wouldn't go near her. When I look at her, I think sorry. I'm sure she's wonderfully fun. She'd be great for a drink, Bellatrix. I'm sure. I'm trying to think what films they're into. Oh, Eleanor Holmes, of course, because Helena plays the mother.
Yes, she plays Enola Holmes's mother and the mother of Sherlock Holmes as well. All right, let's do a double dunter. So Dumbledore and McGonagall, Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall.
You mean second Dumbledore, right? The Gambon, Michael Gambon. Yeah, they're all from the last September. Yes. Which is fun. I'm surprised that she hasn't made more with Maggie Smith.
Yeah, they'd be all about each other. Okie-doke, next one. Let's go with Professor Quirrell and Mad-Eye Moody.
Quirrell?
Quirrell.
I thought if I said it out loud, maybe something would come to my head. Mad-Eye Moody is, of course, Brendan Gleeson.
Of course.
Another Irish icon. I'm just going to go with the Butcher Boy, because Quirrell doesn't mean anything to me, I don't think. Maybe you're saying it wrong.
It is. Yes, it's Quirrell, and now I know the answer.
Oh, Quirrell.
Quirrell. It is the Butcher Boy, and you're right, Mad-Eye Moody is played by Brendan Gleeson. But Professor Quirrell, so let me give you a hand. Maybe it'll get you there. It's the first Harry Potter film, just because I'm going to see if you can get to who the actor is. Maybe you can't.
The first film. Well, I'm just a process of elimination. Oh, he's the man with the turban.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The man with the turban.
Ian Hart, isn't it?
Ian Hart, that's right. Okay, well done. You got it. You got there. So you're on a mad roll here. So the last one on this round is Madame Pomfrey.
Madame Pomfrey. So the people that are jumping to mind, I know Trelawney, is that her name? Is Emma Thompson? But
That's right,
that's who I'm
yeah.
visiting. Or Miriam Margolyes. But Pomfrey sounds like a proper, like, I feel like Miriam Margolyes called like Mrs. like Sprout or...
That's it, Professor Sprout, yes.
Oh, is it? Oh my God. Oh
Yeah.
my, I was only joking because like she sprouted from the ground. Well, at least like J.K. Rowling
There we
thought
go.
about these names.
Very clever.
Sorry, but we're not talking about any of these people.
No, we're not. Get to the point.
We're talking about who?
Madame Pomfrey.
Is that Frances de la Tour?
Ooh, I wish it was. It's not. It's also a good actress.
Madame Gemma Jones.
Gemma Jones. So what are we talking about? Fiona Shaw and Gemma Jones.
Is it really obvious?
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of what the kind of the order in which we've spoken about things, it should be fresh.
Is she in Enola Holmes as well?
She's
I
not
remember
in...
Gemma Jones. Gemma Jones in Colette?
No.
Oh my God, she's in Ammonite. She literally is the mother of Kate Winslet.
Yes!
Yeah, and Gemma Jones we didn't talk much about her, and one day we will do an episode on her. But she's fantastic in Ammonite.
So great. All right, so well done. You did really rather well there, to be quite frank. Here's an interesting one, which was a discovery to me. What award was Fiona nominated for her work in the Black Dahlia?
Best drunk on screen. We haven't talked about the Black Dahlia, but it is this like film noir, like, you know, some people might know the story, and she plays a drunk mother of Hilary Swank who doesn't do much until the end, where she does flex a lot of campy acting muscle.
She's playing Betty Davis in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She's just doing that, kind of.
Yeah, and probably with less of a filter, which is saying quite a lot.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, well, no, you're maybe not going to get it. But Best Drunk, that sounds good, but it's not. This is where I'm just like, oh, good heavens. She was nominated for Worst Supporting Actress at, I can't even say it with it, it's so horrible, at The Stinkers. The Stinkers. But it sounds horrible. Bother? Yeah, I mean, it's so gross.
Imagine gathering and being like, these are the stinkiest performance or the worst performances of the year.
Yeah, it's so weird.
I hope they don't exist anymore.
Well, here we go. So they don't exist anymore, but even better, this was the last year they ever ran, which was in 2006. So, I mean, coincidence? I think not. Fiona Shaw, sort of.
Did she win, or was she just nominated?
No, she was just nominated. The winner was Cindy Chung for her performance in Lady in the Water.
Well,
so it was beaten to biggest stinker by Cindy Chung. But I think that there's a reason it was the last year it was ever there. So well done, Fiona. You got rid of the stinkers. But let's now move on and think about Miss Fiona Shaw in her bright and sparkly future. So she's doing a lot right now in television. She's getting a lot of really interesting and fun parts, and it is cropping up more, like you said, in film over the past year or two as well. So I think whatever we put out there is literally going to happen. So come on, start sowing those seeds, Michael. What are you fancying for Fiona?
She did an interview where she says that Phoebe Waller-Bridge asked her, could she sing? And Fiona said she could. The way she worded it made it sound like maybe she can't sing. But anyway, in my mind, like Phoebe Waller-Bridge is working on something for Fiona Shaw.
Right.
And I'm hoping it's like a film, and I'm hoping it's a musical. I'm just hoping it utilizes what I feel lucky enough to have seen on stage. And sure, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is going to make a movie at some point. And why not make it like something with Fiona Shaw?
I think she would, right? I think she would have Fiona Shaw in her film.
Oh, for sure. I mean, rewatching her clip for Killing Eve, but also rewatching her clip in Fleabag for this is really letting Fiona be kind of kooky and weird and fun and sexy and all these, like, motherly but also distant, all these different things that she's well able to do. It's brilliant. So yeah, I would assume they would love to work together more. Well, I'm hoping. This is our dream.
Love it. I've gone down the lesbian romance route because why not? But I don't want, because she's sort of always like a side. She's done a few of these films now, but she's always the sort of side character, the person from the past, whatever. In, like, even though you've got Lizzie, Ammonite, Colette, there's quite a few of these films, but I want her to be the lead, and I also don't want it to be one of these sort of inevitably tragic tales. I know we've said this name before, and maybe it's really dull that we keep coming back, but I'm thinking like Nancy Meyers type romance. So I want Fiona Shaw and then maybe like Emma Thompson, something like that, as a as a couple falling for each other, and it just being really funny, because she is so, when she's allowed to be funny, she's so funny. So like we were talking much earlier on about Three Men and a Little Lady, it would be fun to just see her getting to be goofy and in love and being and silly with that. And I think a Nancy Meyers type film would be delicious.
It would, like, what I'm imagining is, like, you know, something's got to give with Diane Keating. So you have instead Fiona Shaw, and she has, I'm trying to think of, yeah, like an Emma Thompson is one, like the Jack Nicholson part, but then you have like, I'm trying to think, like, whoever the Keanu Reeves part could be played by somebody. Or like, do you know what I'd love if it was like Kristen Scott Thomas and Fiona Shaw?
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's something about Kristen Scott Thomas and Fiona Shaw which I think would really spark.
Yeah.
But and then who could be the younger one that would equal them? Oh, it'd have to be someone really, really great. Why not Ruth Negga?
Oh, well, Ruth Negga.
Let's get Ruth Negga. So you'd have this three, like, this thing, and Fiona's like in the middle being like, oh, do I want, you know, this younger woman? Do I want Thomas? Do I want to be myself? I would die. Yeah, what a great show.
I've actually already just booked my ticket, so that's exciting. I'm going to get to see that in 2024 when it comes out. Brilliant.
And like, so I was thinking, and this has already been made, but it's done a lot on stage, so let's remake it again. She plays these desperate, thirsty, horny women, and like, in my mind, there's one part that is perfect for that, which is Sweeney Todd, Mrs. Lovett. She could have been amazing. Right. And like, I like Helena Bonham Carter in it, but it would have been very different with Fiona Shaw in that part.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting fit.
Also her face and everything, like in a Tim Burton film. I just think she'd be really good. Like, there's a desperation or kind of a vulnerability to a lot of what she does, which would be embodied in this one character.
Yeah, no, that is good. I like that a lot, actually. I can see it. I think that makes sense. She would be such a good fit for Mrs. Lovett. Sort of thinking about stripping it back down into kind of smaller scale stuff, I always do like to try and think of a director I'd really like someone to work with. And I was thinking of someone who could also harness that energy of a smaller piece, but it being very centered on this person, where it relies on them to carry the whole thing. And I immediately thought of Andrea Arnold, and I quite specifically thought of Red Road and Kate Dickie in Red Road. And I can see it, and I think Fiona Shaw would have the energy which would make that work. She already, I can imagine her slotting into an Andrea Arnold film, any of them that have already come out. And whatever it is, I'm not going to be specific here. Just, I think Fiona Shaw, Andrea Arnold, match made in heaven, I think would be a really, really exciting combo. So I'm going to put that one out as one of my main votes for this career.
And it's interesting with Fiona Shaw, she doesn't make many kind of naturalistic films, in that it's kind of broader. Like, everything is very broad.
Feels like it, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, you saying that, like, Lynn Ramsey would be another.
Oh my god, I can't believe she wasn't the first person that came to my head. I mean, I'll stick with Andrea Arnold, but
Oh no, for sure.
Lynn
Oh,
Ramsey would also both. One of each, please, please,
yeah.
please, 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 please.
And speaking so the person I have, so this is not naturalistic, but this is a filmmaker I absolutely love. Miranda July, whose films are
Oh, this is perfect.
They're like a perspective on the world, which at some points are maybe naturalistic, but are a little bit like
off kilter.
Off kilter, exactly. They're wonderful. So her films, which I recommend seeking out, would be her recent one, Kajillionaire, and her debut, Me and You and Everyone We Know. And Fiona Shaw would fit so well into her atmosphere and tone because she's well able to like adjust from, you know, a normal situation, everyday situation, to something that's totally absurd. And I just love it. And I also just love the idea. So Miranda July, really recommend you follow her on Instagram. Just all these kind of interesting, let's say, things. And I can just imagine them being in a room and really exploring and really finding something.
No, I love that. I love it. That's such a good fit. That's such an interesting fit. I'm really excited about that one. So that's great that that's going to be a thing now. Thank heavens. My final one, which is another very broad one, but it's just that I want more farce. But also, I was kind of thinking about what you were touching on earlier about that period in time where she did a lot of big American blockbuster type films. But she could do that again, but be choosing the right ones. So say, for example, they did a sequel to something like Game Night. I would love to see her being a lead player in something like Game Night, which was a wonderful comedy from a few years ago, which looked like it was just going to be this run-of-the-mill thing. But no, it was so much fun. And I think she could be great in that as one of the sort of the main players, the protagonists, or the antagonists of the thing. I just feel that would be such a good thing.
So the original one, you know, so they have this game night, and then Jason Bateman is the lead character, and his brother comes in, and they're very competitive, and they think they're in a really like big epic scale immersive game. But instead, like, his brother is linked with like gangsters and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in it is an Irish person who absolutely I adore,
great.
Sharon Horgan. So why doesn't Fiona Shaw turn up in the sequel as Sharon Horgan's mother, who loves games? Like, she's visiting for for a month.
Yes. Oh my God, this is so good. You're doing so well. Keep going.
And she's like, oh, I'll play. Oh, I'm not that interested, but I'll play. Like, she's doing the Brenda Fricker Irish mammy thing. But she gets competitive. And then you realize, oh my God, she's not here to visit Sharon Horgan. She's here because she has this whole like gangster history. So, I mean, I hadn't thought of this at all. I'm just springing from the energy you're given.
But no, you're like snowballing with an idea, and you've just made it so much better. So,
it'd be so good. Also, Sharon Horgan and Fiona Shaw would be such a joy. I love Sharon Horgan.
That's a really good point. Anyway, good coupling. Yeah, but hey, well, there we go. Fiona Shaw. What a delight. If you want to let us know if there's a name that you really want us to add into the mix, you can drop us an email at don'tknowherpod@gmail.com or catch us on Instagram or Twitter at don'tknowher_pod. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us for this episode. And to you, Michael, for sitting with me in our weird virtual pub where we just talk at each other as we would if we were together in the real world.
Bye.
Bye-bye-bye-bye.